in tax compliance, we do liquidities filing, correction filings, and addressing if any demands or notice has being issued, we address that demands and notices. And Form 16A is being issued. And we manage investment proof, we validate and the investment proofs that has been submitted, and we do TDS auditing and do consultation and help desk in tax compliances. And coming to LLC compliances, we do take care of the local labor law compliances, which includes registrations and documentations and periodic filings and inspections, handling inspections. If any notice is being issued, we handle that notices. And if any changes has to happen in the registrations, we do amendments and CLRA registrations also, and POSH compliance. Okay, so recently we are getting the POSH compliance is getting much more importance. We do POSH compliance and Apprenticeship Act. So whatever as an employer they have to do, that is being provided. And whenever there is any change in the legislation or any amendments upcoming, means that is being updated to the clients. In the HRMS tool, we have these onboarding and core HR activities and leave management and attendance management, payroll and performance management, and business expense claim management. Means like they can submit their bills for reimbursement and they can claim, and exit management. And regarding compliance tool, we have compliance management, activity management, and if any queries that is being raised by the employees, that is being addressed through this compliance tool. And we do liaisoning activities also. We have a liaison with all the government officials if required to handle the notices of any issues. And we do have this automated alert reminders, and we provide compliance assistant, like providing audit assistance and consultations whenever that is required. And we do have a knowledge hub wherein it's a database where you can find the latest legal updates and amendments, and we do help desk also. So coming to Apprenticeship Act thing, we do provide employer-related activities, and we do manage the portals, whatever the documents or agreements which has to be uploaded, that we do, and we validate that agreement also. So when and where filing is required, we do filing of reports and returns. So this is what we offer our services to our clients. Okay, so what is that we are going to see today? Okay, so we are going to see what is the labor law, a simplified framework for start and mid-segment enterprises. Okay, so in today's session, we are going to see a brief introduction of what is the state government and the central government is providing, and what are the list of labor laws and its applicability. It's a bird's eye view. We are not going in depth for each act. Okay, so we are going to see the key labor laws which is applicable for small and mid-segment enterprises. Okay, so you will be finding out the list of act and its applicability, and finally we'll be having a Q&A session. So the key takeaways after this session would be like you will be having a fair idea like what are the labor laws which is applicable for a startup and mid-segment establishments, and how it is applicable. Okay, so whether this act is applicable for our establishment, that idea you can have once the session is over. Okay, so we can start with the participants poll. Okay, so just key in your replies to the questions which is coming into your screen. We have participants with the employee size of 1 to 100, means like the employee head count of their organization. So that is between 35%, and between 101 to 250 we have 26%, and 250 to 500 we have 20%, and 500 to 1000 we have 3%, and more than 1000 we have 14%. That is very good. Okay, so this is intent to have a small and medium segment establishment, but I could find people who have an organization strength of more than 1,000 employees are also participating in this. So thank you for the response. Can we? Okay, so people belonging to HR department is 72%. And people who are in the payroll, they have 17% and compliance 11%. And the type of organization, we have around 47% from IT and ITS background, and we have 25% from manufacturing and others 28%. Thank you all. Thank you. Can we close the poll, Divya?
Yes, ma'am. Closed.
Yeah. Fine. My screen is visible to everyone. Fine. Okay. So here, just a brief introduction. See, the central and state government, they encourage all the startups and the mid-segment enterprises by providing a streamlined process for compliance requirement by way of digitalizing the registration process, maintenance of registers, applying for registrations, or maintaining the registers. Everything is being digitalized now. Okay, so they don't have to maintain all the records in a manual manner. Okay, so to reduce further, they have reduced the number of registers that's supposed to be maintained under each act. So they have combined in one single returns or registers. Okay, so these are all the few things which the central and state government has taken initiative to support the startups and the mid-segment enterprises to duly comply with the labor law requirement. Okay, so obviously labor law compliance is very much important. So if any we cannot take any financial risk of non-compliance of labor laws. Okay, even a minor thing which is not being complied with, will land up with either penalties or sometimes imprisonment also. So we have to be very cautious in having complying with all the labor laws. To understand what is it required that has to be compliant, we have shortlisted few critical labor laws which a startup and the mid-segment enterprises, they have to comply with that. Okay, so I just wanted to have you a key labor laws because there are n number of labor laws. Okay, so like for example, plantation labor laws, we have working journalists, we have sales promotion like that. But right now we are not focusing on the mines, plantations, and journalist labor law requirement. We are focusing more on what do you say, that establishments, factories, and other shops and restaurants. Okay. So subsequent slides will help you to understand there are different categories of labor laws. Okay. One. Yeah. My screen is visible, hopefully, right? Okay, so we have listed down what all the labor laws which is applicable for small startups and mid segment. So after listing down, we have categorized under which all categories these labor laws will come. Okay, so one is regulation of working conditions and services. So this speaks more about the working conditions of the employees and the health and safety measures that are supposed to be taken by the employer. Okay, and what is your working hours, the establishment closing hour, opening and closing hours, their leaves. All these speaks about in the regulation of working conditions and service. Okay, and wages. So essentially, everyone is working for salary and wages. How this wages has to be paid and how what often it has to be paid, that regulations, I mean, all these the regulations which governs under the payment of wages, that is being discussed under this category. Okay, and social security. Okay, so any untoward incidents or any like for example maternity or any accident or at the time of termination, some financial support is required for the employees. Okay, so the Social Security Act will provide all those benefits to those employees. and employment and training. So this speaks about, like, for example, when we engage any trainees like apprentice or anybody else, when we provide training, how much amount we have to pay the stipend, whether our industry or our trade, we may have to comply with this act. So that will be discussed under the employment and training. Okay, so industrial relations. See, industrial relations is, unless we have a smooth relationship between the employer and employees, uh, we cannot run an establishment. Okay, so there are few regulations which speaks about how to maintain a harmonious relationship between the employer and the employee. Okay, so under welfare, we will have a look at the regulations which provide a fund for the welfare activities of the employees, and prevention and protection from sexual harassment. Okay, so I think last webinar we saw this POSH Act. Okay, so this is one of the mandatory act wherein, irrespective of the type of establishment, it has to comply with that. National and festival holidays. Okay, so there are few regulations, and it is more of a state specific regulations, wherein this act will provide for, will discuss about how to grant national and festival holidays. And finally, we'll be having a quick glance of maintenance of records. Even there are two acts under the maintenance of records, which speaks about how to reduce the number of records, okay, and go for multiple registrations. So now we are going to have what are the list of acts under the each category and how it is applicable for any establishment. Okay. So the first and foremost thing which we are going to see is the act which regulates the working conditions and the service of the employees. So here you can see the list of acts. Okay. So here in the left side, you can see that Shops and Commercial Establishment Act. Okay, this is the governing legislation. Okay, so governing legislation means, like, this is the primary legislations for any shop, restaurants, hotels, and commercial establishments. So for all these establishments, this Shops and Commercial Establishment Act is applicable. Okay, so this is the states. See, we could see the column, like, it speaks about statutory nature. So it's nothing but whether this act is a state specific legislation or it is a central act. Okay, so Shop and Commercial Establishment Act is a state specific act. Okay, so each state government, they have implemented this Shop Act. So as per the state provisions, the applicability and of the act will differ. Okay, so what is the essence, what is the objective of this act? It regulates the working conditions. When I say working conditions, it specifies how many, I mean, what is the working hours for the employees, the opening and closing hours of the establishment, and the leaves, how they can be availed, and the holidays, the health and safety measures that suppose the employer has to supposed to take. When we speak safety means, like, they speak about the first aid box, they have to provide the fire extinguisher cylinders. And even in a Kerala Shops and Establishment, what they say is, like, the employee should not stand in a continuous manner. They should be provided with the seating facilities to sit. Okay, they cannot stand for a long period of time. This is one of the very peculiar kind of provisions which the Kerala government, they have brought in, and that has become a mandatory thing, like they're providing a seating facility at the workplace. Okay, and coming back to the registration, see, for there are few state acts, like, for example, Gujarat and Maharashtra, wherein if the number of employees is less than 10, you don't have to go for registration. Okay, you have to simply intimate the authority about the details of the establishment. Okay, so there is a separate form in which the establishment having less than 10 number of employees, they can simply intimate to the authority about the establishment details, how many employees are engaged, what all the things they are complying with. That all these things they have to provide as a declaration and submit to the authorities. Okay, so this Shop Act is more of a state specific, wherein we have to refer to the appropriate state government, what do you say, the notification. Okay, and once when I was discussing about the registration, so once they cross the 10 or more employees, obviously they go for registration. This I'm speaking only for the few states like Maharashtra and Gujarat. Okay, so once the short and when the act gets applicable, It remains applicable irrespective of the headcount, whether it is changes below 10 or not. Okay. So this is the governing legislation of the shops and commercial establishment and the Factories Act. So wherever there is a manufacturing process is taking place, this Factories Act is very much applicable. Okay. This Factories Act is the governing legislation for the manufacturing process. Okay. So they speaks about the working conditions. Again, the working hours, the spread overs, the overtime, how many hours they can work as a overtime, or how many hours the work hours in a week. All these is being specified in the Factories Act. Okay, and moreover, it speaks a lot about the safety of each industries. For example, glass industry, they have a different safety norms which the employer has to follow, and for cement industry they have a different safety norms which they have to follow. It's very quite exhaustive guidelines that has been given, wherein the employer has to completely adhere to all these safety guidelines to ensure that the employees, whoever is working in that factory, are being safe health wise, and they are being protected from the any occupational hazards. Okay, and there are few work committees that can be formed for under the Factories Act, which ensures the safety of the employees. So who has to register under the, or who has to get the license under the Factories Act? Okay, so the factory which runs with the aid of, or means like the factory manufacturing process which runs with the support of power and having employees 10 or more, definitely they have to obtain the license. Okay, and there are few cottage industries, okay, wherein we don't have to require what do you say that power. Without aid of the power, the manufacturing process may take place. So in that case, if there are 20 or more employees, obviously they have to obtain the license. Okay, so this Factories Act is a central act, but appropriate state, they have their own rules. Okay, they have to adhere to the factory rules of the appropriate state. Okay, and Contract Labor Regulation Prevention and Abolition Act 1970. Okay, so when you run a factory or establishment, we have few contract labors. For example, we engage contract labors for security, for housekeeping. Okay, so the essence of this act, the objective of the act is you cannot engage the contract labor for core activity of the manufacturing process or the establishment activities. Okay, so as I told you, security is not a core activity for any IT sector. Okay, and housekeeping is not a core activity of an IT sector. So in that case, they can engage the contract labor in those kind of what do you say, the task or activities. Okay, so this contract labor, essentially, the ultimate aim of this act is to prevent the contract labor, to abolish this contract labor, instead to have all the employees under the direct employee of the principal employer. Okay, so till such time, this contract labor, they provide all the benefits and welfare facilities, which is very much equivalent to the permanent employees. Okay, again, this act regulates about the working conditions, the leave, how it can be granted, and what are the benefits and welfare measures which we can obtain from the contract labor. Fine. And this is applicable for those establishment who are engaging 20 or more contract laborers at any day in the preceding 12 months period. Okay. And child labor. Okay. So few restaurants and hotels, they engage child laborers for few works. There are norms wherein the child laborers, they have to engage. So people who are in this act is applicable for all the establishment, and there are few activities or wherein the child laborers, they cannot be engaged. Okay, we have a scheduled list of occupational details. Okay, and coming to the building and other construction workers. So wherever the building and construction work happens, this act is applicable. Okay, so 10 or more employees are engaged for this activity, this act becomes applicable. So it speaks about the working conditions. They have a welfare board which protects the health and safety and welfare of the employees who are engaged in the building and construction works. Okay, and Interstate Migrant Act. Okay, so nowadays we are people have people from coming from other states. Okay, so they work in the organization. So just like that, we cannot engage the employees. They people who are supplying the manpower, they have to have the license. Even the company has to get registered under this act. Okay, so if there are 5 or more interstate migrant workmen is there, they have to go for registration of the establishment. Okay, so this is not applicable for a managerial and supervisory category. Okay, and Maharashtra private security guards regulation. So people nowadays we encase security, so that security agency should have get registered. This speaks about more of a state specific. This is applicable only for Maharashtra. So they have to get registered, and while we engage this security guards, we have to ensure that they have get registered under this act. Okay, similarly, they govern the what do you say, that the wage, minimum wage, the working conditions, how the leave can be given. There should not be overlapping of the shift, and they have to have the social security benefits. All these being ensured in this act for all the, especially for the security guards. Okay, even we have a central act which speaks about the Private Security Agencies Regulation Act, which speaks about the same thing, wherein it provides for the training of the security guards. Okay, in addition to that, they provide for the training for the how a security guard can be trained, how their background verification can be done. All these things is being provided under this Private Security Agencies Act. So this act is a central act, is being applicable for all the states and union territories. So when I say all the states and union territories, a few acts give exemption, they are not applicable for the Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. So now we have a look at the wage related acts, which governs the payment of how a wage has to be paid, how often it has to be paid. Okay, so the first and foremost thing is the Payment of Wages Act. It is a central act. Okay, so this speaks about how often or how timely the wage has to be paid and how it has to be paid, and what are the registers which are supposed to be maintained, how it protects from unauthorized deductions by the employer. Okay, the employer cannot simply deduct the any deductions from the wage or salary from the employer. There are a few prescribed deductions which the employer can do. Other than that, employers, it is offense to deduct the to deductions from the salary. Okay, so it is obviously it is applicable to all the establishments and scheduled list of employments. Okay, minimum wages. Okay, so we engage different set of skill set in our organization. So for all these set of skill set, there is a fixed minimum rate of wages wherein it is being fixed by the appropriate state. Though the act is central, the appropriate state government, they fix the minimum rate of wages. Okay, so how often they fix? They can fix once in, it depends on the state. Okay, once they can fix once in 5 years period, or they can fix once in a year, or whatever it may be. Based on the consumer price index, they can fix the rate and announce. Okay, so based on that notification, they have to adhere to. Okay, so it is obviously applicable to all the establishments and the scheduled employments. Okay, and the Payment of Bonus Act 1965. So here, this provides a legal right for the employees to have the profit sharing, whatever the employers has earned with. Okay, so this stipulates a minimum bonus and the maximum bonus. Minimum bonus, obviously, we may know that is 8.33% and maximum 20%. Okay, this is the profit sharing. A bonus is nothing but a profit earned is being shared among the employees. So how it is applicable? It's applicable to all the factory and establishment where 20 or more persons are engaged, and to all the employees who have worked at least for 30 days period to be eligible to have this bonus. And the ceiling, wage ceiling is 20,000. People who are earning up to 21,000 rupees of salary, they can have this bonus. Okay. And Equal Remuneration Act. This Equal Remuneration Act speaks about that there should not be any discrimination based on the gender. Okay, the company should have a recruitment policy and transfer policy and promotion policy wherein there should not be any discrimination should be shown towards any gender. Okay, so equal pay for equal work. Okay, so it is applicable for all the establishments. And this Maharashtra minimum house rent allowance. So this is a state-specific act wherein this act recommends that the employee should be provided with the financial support in that way, like at least a 5% of the wages earned should be the HRA for the employee. So to meet out the expenses, if Maharashtra is a city like Mumbai, they are quite expensive and we cannot predict the cost. So hence they have fixed that at least minimum of 5% of the wages should be fixed as a house rent allowance. Okay, so it is applicable to all the factories and establishment. And the thing is, it doesn't include supervisory categories who earn salary of more than 10,000 per month. Okay, and similarly, the West Bengal also has this Workmen's House Rent Allowance Act. It is a state-specific act, and here we have 3.5% of wages should be fixed as a HRA. Okay, and here it is applicable for all the industries which have 50 or more employees. So social security. Social security is providing that a benefit or a financial support at the time of needy. Okay. So we'll have a look at what all the acts which is falls under the social security. So the first act is the Workmen's Compensation Act. See, for example, if any workplace accident or workplace injury happens, the employer is liable to provide compensation for the employee. Okay, so in some cases, what may lead is the injury may lead to a temporary disablement or a permanent disablement. Okay, so based on that disablement, the employer has to provide compensation to the employees. Okay, so in case if the employee that death happens as because of workplace injury, obviously the compensation has to be paid to the dependents. Okay, so here they have given a list of schedules wherein it is applicable for all those employees who are being engaged in as per the schedule 2. Okay. Employee State Insurance Act. Okay, so everybody will be very much aware of what it is. It is a central act wherein they can avail the sickness benefit, maternity benefit. If any workplace accident happens, they can have that accident, and if any death of the employee, they can have the funeral expense also. Okay, they provide funeral expenses, and if any occupational disease, that is disease related to the occupation, based on their occupation, they may come across with, for example, lung. TB also they may have. People who are being engaged in the cotton industries, they may come across these lung related diseases. Okay, so in that case, the ESI will provide the benefit for the employees for the treatment. Moreover, this benefit is not only for the self, okay, it is the medical benefit can be availed by the whole family dependents of that particular employee. Okay, so when we say family, there is a definition of family. We have to refer that family who are all the dependents. Okay, so here the applicability, when we see that applicability, factory with 8 of power 10 or more, they have to obtain, get registered, and without power 20 or more, they have to get registered. Okay, so the employees who can avail the benefits under this act is who are drawing wages up to 21,000 for normal people, and for the disabled person, it is 25,000. Okay. Coming to Employee Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act. Okay, so it is a retirement benefit act where you can find pension fund, provident fund, and EDLI. Okay, it's an insurance. Okay, in case anything happens, you can claim insurance from the EDLI. It's a retirement benefit fund where, in case if the employee at the time of employment a death happens, means the dependents can have a death claim wherein a benefit will reach to the dependents. It's social protection. So soon after the retirement, what happens? Okay, we need pension. So all this being provided under the employment provident fund. Okay, we have different set of schemes like pension scheme, provident fund scheme, and EDLI. So who has to whom this act is applicable? All the factories and establishment where 20 or more employees are being engaged, this act is applicable. Okay. Maternity Benefit Act 2017. Okay, so here we have women employees. Okay, they can avail maternity leave. Okay, this act provides for maternity leave benefits. So totally 26 weeks they can avail as a maternity leave. Okay, and moreover, employer has few responsibilities of like providing crutch benefit, crutch facility. Okay, if they don't have crutch facility, they have to provide crutch benefit. Okay, so these are all things which you could find, and like medical bonus in case they are not providing any insurance facility, means they have to provide the medical bonus. Okay, so for how many child they can avail this benefit? For first two child, 26 weeks, and after that, the number of maternity leave will get reduced accordingly. Okay, so this act is applicable wherever the establishment is having a 10 or more employees. Okay, so you have to see it is not women employees, it is 10 or more employees. So if you have 10 or more, obviously the act becomes applicable. Payment of gratuity. So this payment of gratuity speaks about, again, this is a financial support for the employee at the time of termination, resignation, or superannuation. So when the employee leaves the organization, there should be some financial support for him to meet out his expenses. So this act will provide this financial support to that employee. Okay. So who is eligible for this, having this benefit? Means people who have provided or who are in the continuous service for more than 5 years period, they are very much eligible to avail this benefit. Okay, So to which all establishment is applicable means all the factories, mines, plantations, whatever may be the type of organization, it is applicable for all the establishments and organizations wherein 10 or more employees are being engaged in any one day of the preceding 12 months. Means like if in any one of the day, any month you have, suppose that a headcount goes beyond 20 means the act becomes applicable. Okay. And coming to the employment training. So employment training, all these act, what it speaks about means like the labor market should have a talent pool. Okay, they should be skilled enough to be recruited by any organization. So there are two different act which provides for that an employer should recruit, should take apprentice and provide training and provide stipend also. So they have, we'll just have a look at the list of acts which speaks about. Okay, so the first act is the Employment Exchange Compulsory Notification of Vacancies Act, 1959. It's a central act. Okay, so wherein it mandates the employer to compulsorily notify if any vacancies arises in their organization. Okay, so whether it is a public sector or a private sector, if they have a 25 or more employees engaged, means definitely they have to have this notify the any vacancies which is coming across in their establishment. Okay. And Apprentice Act. So as I told you, the employer, they can engage apprentices in different trades. Okay, they have given a set of list of trades wherein the employer can engage, they can engage the apprentices wherein they have to go in registration in NAPS portal and they can choose the apprentices accordingly. Okay, so it regulates the engagement of apprentices, what kind of leave they can avail, what kind of benefits they can avail, all these being mentioned under the Apprentice Act. Okay, so it is applicable for all the establishments and the industries. Okay, in Andhra, they have a separate act for them. What it speaks is they have to give preference for the locals. So they have an act called the Andhra Pradesh Employment of Local Candidates in the Industries or the Factories Act 2019. Okay, so very recently this act has come into picture. So it is a state-specific act where if anyone is starting an industry or a factory, whatever it may be, okay, they have to give preference to the local candidates. Okay, at least 75% of the local candidates has to be recruited and engaged. Okay, so it applicable to all the industries and factories and any enterprises also. Okay. Welfare. So welfare, obviously, it is for the welfare of the employees. A fund is being constituted. From that fund, the fund is being utilized for the well-being of the employees. Okay, so this is a more of a state-specific act. For example, Tamil Nadu, they have their own Labor Welfare Fund Act. Karnataka, they have their own Labor Welfare Fund Act. Each states, they have their own Labor Welfare Fund Act. So they have to adhere to accordingly. So what the Labor Welfare Fund Act speaks about is the employer and the employee, they have to contribute to the labor welfare fund that is being constituted. Okay, so this it can be an few states they have an annual contribution and few states they have once in 6 months period the contribution goes. Okay, so the fund that is being contributed, that is being credited to the labor welfare fund, and this how this fund is being managed, it is being decided by the labor welfare board. Okay, so they will come out with a different set of schemes for the employees to avail this fund. Okay, so in Karnataka, there is a different set of schemes which is available for the employees to make use of this fund. And in Tamil Nadu, we can find a different set of schemes wherein the employees can make use of fund. Okay, so I'll have given a gist of things which they can use. One is educational assistance. Okay, the employees, if their children, they are studying a 12th standard or an engineering, or they are going for a medical college, they are studying, means they can avail a fund assistance from this labor welfare. They have to apply for it. They have to submit supporting relevant documents. There is a mark score percentage with which they become eligible to avail this educational assistance. Okay. And this fund can be utilized for recreational activities. See, for example, the government, they can have, they can provide a guest house for the employees. They can make use of, for example, if they are arranging for any tour plan, any outstation trips, wherein if the government is having a guest house, they can make use of it by writing to the Labor Welfare Board requesting for the permission. So once they have, they can accommodate that free of cost. These, I'm just giving an example of it. Okay, so these can, and other than that, if a trade union wish to conduct a sports event, they can avail in Karnataka. They can avail a maximum of 1 lakh rupees as a fund from this labor welfare, and they can organize the sports event. There are different set of schemes which is available, state specific. We have to approach the appropriate state labor welfare board to make use of this fund. Okay, and in some cases they provide training for the destitute women. Okay, so if anything happens to the employee, the widow can avail training to get herself be employed. Okay, and even they provide accident benefit and even for funeral expenses being or not exactly expense, I would say funeral benefit is being given to the employees. So obviously we have to refer the appropriate state act to avail this benefit. Okay, so apart from this contribution of this labor welfare fund, whatever the fund, the unpaid accumulations, when we say unpaid accumulations, any employee's wages or his settlement amount that is being left at the employer's hand, that's supposed to be credited to this labor welfare board. Okay, the employer cannot retain those unpaid accumulations in his hand for a specific period of time. Okay, this has to be credited to the labor welfare fund. Okay, so once that has come to the labor welfare board will disperse that fund to the employee. Okay, so this is the function of the labor welfare board, and this is being guided under the or a legal framework of labor welfare fund, which is state specific. Okay, industrial relations. As I told you, to run any establishment or a factory or whatever it may be, a small hotel or restaurants, an employer and employee relationship shall exist. Okay, that relationship should be very smooth. Okay, so unless otherwise, things cannot happen as expected. Okay, so to maintain that industrial relationship, there are few set of regulations which the government has brought in. Okay, so the Trade Union Act, you can be surprised how come a Trade Union Act is applicable for a small or a medium set of enterprises. Obviously, it is applicable. There is no prescription of this head count. Okay, if you have at least 7 or more employees, and if the employees are wanting to have a union among themselves, that has to be recognized by the employer. Okay, that union has to be registered under the Trade Union Act. Okay, so how this trade union can be registered, how this can be recognized, and how the representation from the workers that can be recognized, and the trade union can be registered. All these be provided under this Trade Union Act. Okay, so how long they can hold the post, all this being specified in detail under the Trade Union Act. Okay, and Industrial Disputes Act. Okay, so there are disputes may come across in the establishment or the factories. Okay, so to settle down, how to settle down all those disputes. Okay, a representation from the employees are also should come, and a representation from the employer also side should come. A third party can also be involved in resolving those disputes. So there are a few dispute mechanism, handling mechanisms available in this Industrial Disputes Act, like for example, arbitration, conciliation, adjudication. So all these, how this can be done, you can get the details under the Industrial Disputes Act. Okay, so the essence of this act is to avoid unfair labor practices and to protect the rights of the employer, so that the industrial harmony is being maintained. Okay, so to whom this act is applicable? So it is applicable to all the industries, and it is not specifically when we discuss about the workmen to whom this act applicable is, like people who are in the supervisory category and drawing wages more than 10,000 per month, for them this act is not applicable. Okay, there are few state-specific act, like for example, the West Bengal Payment of Subsistence Allowance Act, the Karnataka Payment of Subsistence Allowance Act, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Okay, so all these speaks about the subsistence allowance. Okay, what does it mean? Okay, for example, if the employee is under suspension, okay, he should be provided at least a minimum, a wage, so that he can meet out his basic needs. Okay, so for them, subsistence allowance can be given. Okay, so this act regulates how much allowance or amount can be given to that particular employee. Okay, so obviously this is applicable for all type of industries, especially for Tamil Nadu, people who are in the supervisory category and drawing wages about 15,000 they are not applicable. The employees, they are not come under the purview of this act. And people who are in the managerial and administrative activity, they are also being excluded from the applicability of this act. Okay, so these are all the list of acts which falls under the industrial relations, trade union, industrial disputes, and payment of subsistence allowance act. Apart from that, once your headcount being a small startups or medium segment, once you cross the headcount of more than 100 people, okay, there are few other acts which becomes applicable. So later on we can see what all those acts. Okay, so we have women employees. Okay, normal in I mean, you have more number of women employees who are being engaged in the establishment of factories. Okay, they even work in the night shifts. Okay, so it is the employer's duty to provide security and safety from any other harassment at the workplace. Okay, so this act, okay, the Sexual Harassment of Women at the Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, it gives a legal framework how this harassment at the workplace can be prevented, and how it can be avoided, and if at all if it happens, how it can be redressed. Okay, so this act speaks in detail like how the committee can be formed, how the grievance can be addressed, how the employer has to be mandatorily registered get in the she-box portal. All these things you can find under this act. The objective of the act is to protect the women employees from the sexual harassment at the workplace. Okay, so it is applicable to all the workplace. Please understand, it is workplace. Okay, so when you say workplace, even if I am engaging a domestic help in my home, means she is also, or I am being an employer, I also have to comply with this act. Okay, and national and festival holidays. Okay, so this act gives a legal framework of like how a national and festival holidays can be granted to the employees. Okay, so we have, these are all state specific act. Okay, so we have Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Orissa and Puducherry. All these states, they have a act which they call as a Industrial Establishment National and Festival Holidays Act. Okay, so wherein this act provides for mandatorily, the employer has to mandatorily provide the national holidays, like for example, October 2nd, May 1st, August 15th, and January 26th. All these, like all these are mandatorily, they have to give the national holidays. Okay. Apart from this, this act empowers the employer and the employees to choose their own festival holidays. Okay, so what they have to do is, the employer, along with the consent from the employee, they have to choose the list of the festival holidays which they propose to have it. So this is the year end, we have November and December. Before the end of the December, they have to submit the list of holidays to the authorities and get the approval. And once they get the approval, that has to be displayed in the notice board. Okay, it is applicable to all the industrial establishments. Okay, so this essentially, this act guides the how the what do you say that how the national and festival holidays can be granted to the employees. And in case if the employees is being engaged during this national festival holidays, how the payment can be given, the overtime, whether they can go for a compensation or they can provide a double payment. All these being regulated by this act. Okay, and how many days before or how many days prior they have to inform the authority. All these things is being guided under this act. So finally, we have come to the ease of compliance. Okay, there are few acts which provides ease of compliance under the labor laws. Okay, so the first and foremost is the labor laws exemption from furnishing returns and maintaining registers by the certain establishments Act 1988. Okay, so it gives exemption from filing few returns and maintaining registers from the various labor laws. Okay, so we have n number of labor laws wherein we have to maintain a huge number of registers and we have to file the returns. Okay, instead of being a very small organization, okay, the government has come out with the exemption provisions. Okay, they have brought in what they call as they have defined, given a definition, a small establishment and a very small establishment. Okay, so the establishment which is having a head count between 10 to 19, they fall under the small establishment. An establishment which is having less than 9, they fall under the very small establishment. Okay, so accordingly, they have to maintain a prescribed registers. Okay, so they don't have to go for the n number of registers that is being prescribed under the various labor laws. Instead, they can maintain the registers as prescribed under this act. Okay, and they can file a combined annual return also. Okay, so Andhra Pradesh, they have come out with their state-specific act. Okay, so wherein they have simplified the registrations under the multiple acts. Okay, and they don't have to maintain multiple records also. Instead, if they follow this, that is more than enough for the establishment to comply with the different labor acts. Okay, what they have simplified the registration. For example, CLRA, BOCW, interstate migrant, shop act, all this can be done in a very single registration. Okay, so this is instead of going for multiple registration, they can obtain one single registration, and they can file one combined annual returns for different, I mean, for example, under the Payment of Wages Act and the Bonus Act, they have to file different, annual returns they have to submit. So instead going for each act, they can combine all in one single return. Okay, so this act provides for easy compliance for the small and all the establishment, not only for small, it is applicable for all the establishments. Okay, I think we have reached the end of the session. So I would like to ask few questions. Hope you have understood whatever that has been discussed so far. I would like to throw a few questions to you. Just if you could able to answer, you can answer it. Yeah. So can you name any one state-specific act which regulates the working condition and service? Can I have a look at the chat box so that people, if you can answer in the chat box actually. Can you answer the question? Anyone has answered? Yes. Maharashtra Shop Act. Yes, yes, Deepthi, you're correct. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. One example is Tamil Nadu Shops and Establishment Act 1947. Yes. Okay. Next. Which act provides for National and Festival Holidays Act? Can anyone answer? Which act provides for National and Festival Holidays Act? It's a state-specific act. If you could answer any. Yes, correct. Gautam, you're correct. TN Establishment, National and Festival Holidays Act. Yeah, correct. Maharashtra Shop Act. Yeah, Deepthi, correct. But specifically, I was asking for the act which is exclusively meant for national and festival holidays. Okay. So one such example is Tamil Nadu Industrial Establishments National and Festival Holidays Act. Okay. If dash or more number of contract labor employees are engaged, establishments need to obtain registration certificate under the Contract Labor Act. Can you just mention how many employees? And it's a multiple choice. You can choose which is the right answer. Yes, Gautam, you're right. 20. Okay, so in the options, you don't find that answer, right? So it is none of the above. It is none of the above. It's not 10, it is not 5, it is not 25. Okay, it is none of the above. If 20 or more of contract laborers are engaged in establishments, establishment has to go for registration certificate. Okay. So we have reached the end of the session. If you have any questions, you can post in the chat box. Okay. So can we have a feedback? Divya, can we? Yeah. You can key in your responses to the questions that has been asked. Okay. The people who you need, what do you say? That do you need any assistance? What would you like to discuss with the relativity? Okay, people who have asked for labor law compliances and safe salary restriction consultation. Okay, and payroll compliances. Yeah. Thank you so much for your response. Divya, can we end the poll?
It's ended now.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, thank you. Fine. If you have any questions, please post in the chat box. Superannuation, Gautam, is superannuation mandate as per Gratuity Act? See, it depends on the situation. Okay, so if the employee has put in a continuous of 5 years service, obviously you have to provide. In case of death, you have, irrespective of the number of service you have, the employee has, they have to provide the benefit. Okay, what happens if salary is not paid after 7th? It is offense. It is offense. Okay, is superannuation mandate? Okay, I think I have addressed that question. When you said domestic help at home is covered under the POSH Act, when there is no 10 plus employees at home, is that applicable? See, the thing is there is no, she has every right to raise the grievances. Okay, so for that only we have a she-box portal. She can approach the local committee also to raise her grievance. Okay, so it's very much applicable. Okay. Could you please clarify the key labor laws and statutory acts that govern IT companies in Tamil Nadu, including any state-specific regulations? Um, See, the governing legislation is SHOP Act. Okay, there are few exemptions given to the IT establishment under the SHOP Act, like having a night shift. If you run a night shift, you have to provide all the conditions which has been which you're supposed to fulfill before engaging the women employees in the night shift. You have to obtain the written consent from them. So, and you have to provide the security. All these guidelines has to be followed. There are few exemptions available. Okay, but as such, there is no specific act which is applicable for the IT. Okay? And as per the, see, I was discussing about that you can maintain the records digitally. Okay, not necessary that you have to maintain all records in hard copy. You can maintain electronic records. Okay, this is from Sri Vastava. Is medical certificate required for 0.5 day or 1 day? This is you're referring to which act you are asking for? If they are availing ESI benefit, they have to intimate accordingly. Okay, though they don't have to have the medical certificate. Can you explain about gratuity trust? We need a separate session to handle that. This is from John. And Ruchita, employee receiving salary below rupees 21,000 basically is eligible for bonus. Yes. And when this is from Meenakshi, when gratuity has to pay compulsorily. See, people who have put in a continuous service of 5 years period, when they leave the organization, it is mandatorily the employer has to provide the gratuity benefit. Srivastava, you're asking any act. I just want to understand what do you mean by any act. Age, keeping of physical documents. time period within how many days? No, I mean, asking, Srivasa, can be very clear about what is your question? Any act means like you're asking any act. Age keeping of physical documents means you're asking how long the documents can be preserved. Yes, it depends on the Shop Act. Okay, if you want to maintain under the Shop Act, the state specific, you have to refer to the state specific regulations. Okay, some cases they may ask to maintain at least for 3 years period. Okay, and Meenakshi, I mean, can you be specific? Like you are asking time period within how many days? I'm asking has to pay within how many days? Yeah, within 30 days. Okay. What is this is from Shisha. Okay. What is the employee has worked for 4 years and 240 days in 5th year? Will he? Yes, she is eligible. Eligible. Okay. To receive the gratuity benefit. Okay. Any other questions? I think we can wind up. Divya? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.